Kingdom Rush Elemental Uprising is the standalone sequel to the popular board game Kingdom Rush Rift in Time. It's coming to us from Lucky Duck Games, and it's actually coming on GameFound in February. Now, having played a few scenarios of this game, they have changed some fundamental things about the game, and I very much think they actually improve upon its predecessor. Let's jump into this preview and find out what interesting changes they've made to this vibrant expansion. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Battlecast. We are previewing Kingdom Rush Elemental Uprising and it's live now on GameFound. Now if you were curious how this game plays, I have done a gameplay video which I will link to you here. Now the core gameplay of this new standalone expansion, it remains very much the same. I think that if you know how to play Kingdom Rush, you're going to have no problem transitioning to this new expansion. But they did tweak some fundamentals, and as I was saying earlier, I think it was for the better. More or less where this shift has taken place is where the difficulty in the game comes from. In Kingdom Rush Rift in Time, the hardest part of the game, the thing that would ruin your day, the card that when it came up, you knew you were 3 turns too late, they were portal cards. They could not be hit by your heroes. They could only be damaged by towers that were of a high enough level, and when you did damage them, the towers were destroyed. While I love Kingdom Rush Rift in Time, and I've played it many times, this aspect always felt a bit sad to me. Your progression just crumbling before you, you know. Maybe you wanted to take that level 4 tower for a spin, but you just got to use it one time. Elemental Uprising actually does away with portal cards. It's a change that now that I'm kind of on the other side of the fence, I've really come to appreciate. If you make early sacrifices in Elemental Uprising and you push for that level 4 tower, you could get some real bang for your buck. You might get to use it for 4 or 5 rounds, which is a really cool thing. Additionally, your heroes feel much more powerful because there's nothing they can't tuck into. Portal cards were just a no-go zone, but now your hero can just kind of thrash around defeating, trays left, right, and center. So if portal cards are gone, where does the difficulty come from in this expansion? Well, I'm pleased to say that Lucky Duck has managed to kind of spread the difficulty around. Portal cards were, they were the difficulty. If one made it through, you lost the game. In Elemental Uprising, they've kind of spread this out between more hordes. Generally there are just more horde trays per scenarios. The trays themselves, they seem to have more, more enemies on them, and certainly, most importantly, more intricate enemies. They are introducing many new types of enemies to this game. For example, we see Shaman Barriers, which I really love. They basically prevent a certain type of damage from hitting them from a certain direction. And the reason this is cool is because, as the tray kind of moves along the map, you can actually sneak damage in. So, say something's immune to magic damage from left and right. Well, if you have a tower below or above, you can still get in there. And they've also introduced some cool mechanics where, you can skip damage in. So, a tower can attack a tray above it, but then skip damage down, between the barriers. So that's very cool. They've also added environmental effects, magic blossoms, these flowers that can recharge, that help you deal damage when you pass through them, or lava pools that give you gems, but also you take damage if you're near them. And probably most interestingly, there are mini-bosses. Now, mini-bosses actually have their own deck of, activations, and as they kind of trundle their way down the lane, they can really cause some damage if they're not addressed carefully. They also add event cards, which, they kind of replace portal cards, but they really spice things up. They kind of create a environment unique to that scenario. And I don't want to spoil anything because, the first time you flip up one of these event cards and you're like, oh, my defense is going so well. And then you flip up your event card and you're like, oh no. The heroes in Elemental Uprising feel quite cool, quite unique, and a bit more technical from the ones that we saw in Rift in Time, but that kind of makes sense. Bruxa, the sort of shaman that I was playing, she gets stronger when horde trays die next to her, and this allows her to kind of attack twice or even more on her turn. Now, Ulrich, who's also very cool, has sand warriors, and these actually can move around independent of him, but more importantly, they can kind of throw their life on the line to take damage for him or his allies. Another aspect I really like about this game is that towers have had very much a facelift to their core identity. In Rift in Time, the towers, they did have their personality. Mage towers did a lot of damage, but they weren't very flexible, and archers had range and whatever. In here, the entire line of towers has had a bit of a facelift. The archer towers can sacrifice damage to have infinite range on the map. The magic towers are capable of having more enhancements, not just one but two, and I'll get into that a little later. The circle towers are capable of attacking all applicable trays using their blast keyword, and this really comes in handy, especially if you can position them well. And lastly, the Footmen, these guys, the barracks, have seen a huge upgrade. I think in the last game they felt a bit underwhelming, and now they are just sweet. They throw out damage, they can skip damage. Very cool indeed. The other thing is that the level 4 towers in this game have way more personality. I mean, they completely change how they function, and I really thought that was cool. Now, as I kind of hinted at, kind of the last thing that is new about Elemental Uprising is the enhancement of your tower. Now, they actually introduce a second resource to this game, which is coins. So you have gems to buy towers and coins to upgrade your towers. And these upgrades are pretty spicy. I mean, the ones that I had access to gave a tower infinite range, which is pretty cool. Turned the damage to true damage. And, mage towers can have multiple. In one game, I had a level 1 tower that was upgraded twice, and it was just like laying down the law, even though it was just a level 1. And I like the second resource because, it's not a choice of, do I spend gems on towers or do I spend it on upgrades? You actually have different resources. And some horde trays actually let you choose which one you want. Now, all of this seems like power creep. I would say it kind of is. I mean, there's more hordes, I'm doing more damage, but I'd rather, be tasked with dealing with what's in front of me than having, a portal card come up and realize I lost 3 turns ago and I just didn't realize it till now. Furthermore, health in Elemental Uprising means something. You can conceivably let people get through to your kingdom and still win the game. And with portal cards, if they reach there, you're done. You've lost the game. Now, there are a few negatives that I had playing the game. And I will mention that, obviously this is a prototype game. I think that some of the scenarios that were given to us might have been trying to jam as much variety as possible so we'd get a good sense of the game. But so take this with a grain of salt. Lucky Duck's good at changing things up, listening to feedback, but here's what I experienced. Generally, I felt games were longer. When your towers only get stronger and they stick around, you're capable of dealing more damage. And with more damage, to kind of keep the suspense, they need to introduce more numerous hordes or more intricate enemies. But I felt like it was kind of both. And with that, inextricably linked is upkeep. I mean, the more little hexes, little squares I'm putting out, and the more squares there are to cover, the more upkeep you have. And so if you didn't like the upkeep aspect of Kingdom Rush, storing little pieces of, little shapes and colors, there's more of that here. That's simply no two ways about it. And more to the point, environmental effects, event cards, more intricate hero abilities and types of heroes. Again, these are all linked to upkeep. I think this is a fine line of balance for sure. Now, they say that a game is going to last 60 to 90 minutes, and that may very well be true when you get more used to it, but playing on my own, which I generally find to be faster, I had a game go well over an hour and a half. In one scenario I played, there were essentially 8 rounds of hordes comprising of 22 horde trays. The original game did have scenarios with this many hordes, but they were definitely, near the end of the game, the end of the campaign. And, again, maybe this scenario was custom made for us reviewers or whatever, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the number of horde trays generally increased. There's also one mechanic I didn't particularly love, which is tough. And the idea with this mechanic is that every instance of attack you deal to this particular monster can only ever cover one square of that monster's tile. And, these guys have 9 squares to cover. And so what it means is that you need to do 9 separate attacks to kill this monster. And when you're only starting with 6 towers in a game, you can understand that that's like 2 or 3 full rounds of attack to kill this guy. And, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But like the 6th time I saw it in the same scenario, I thought, okay, like this is, again, that's kind of like that slowing down the game, even though I'm so strong. I don't know, it didn't feel amazing. I hope that while trying to increase difficulty, as the campaign progresses, they don't also, it's not linked to increasing game length, because I do find Kingdom Rush peaks in its enjoyment around, an hour, hour and a half. And then after that, it does start to get a bit, my brain gets a bit tired. You're dealing with so many pieces and puzzles and thinking, and the more towers and more complex shapes you have, because they're not getting destroyed anymore, it's a bit of a mental workout. Overall, I find this expansion to be a good one. I didn't know I didn't like portal cards very much, but now that I've been playing without them, I think that it's actually a good change. I think that the heroes are very interesting. I think that the new heroes are, they're very fresh take, their abilities are very cool, and I like that event cards. They're a nice way to spice up a scenario in ways that sort of bend the fundamental rules, or they can be encapsulated in that one scenario, but I think it's a really nice addition. Overall, I am excited for this game. As I said, it's live now on GameFound. Let me know what you think about Kingdom Rush the series, and if you're excited for this game in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please consider supporting the channel by liking this video or subscribing to the channel, and especially hitting that bell icon. Feel free to leave comments in the comments section below. I love talking with you guys. Until next video, I'll see you then. Thanks.